Well, murders and executions mostly.
We don't have a lot of time.
It is. I know exactly who it is.
The reason I'm here is to help you so that my death will not be in vain. That my life's work will help save some other poor soul from getting mutilated. If this killer does come back and he's for real, there are a few things that you gotta remember. Is this simply another sequel? Well, if it is, same rules apply. But here's the critical thing. If you find yourself dealing with an unexpected backstory and a preponderance of exposition, then the sequel rules do not apply. Because you are not dealing with a sequel. You are dealing with the concluding chapter of a trilogy.
Are you listening to me? Huh? Who is this?
Just one question. Do you think it's over, Sydney? Do you?
What? What movie?
My movie. And it's called Sarah Gets Skewered Like a Fucking Pig. Still in character.
Where?
At the studio.
Where? Nancy Drew wants to know where. Cotton wearing, Sarah darling. Don't you get it?
Someone's killing them in the order they die in the movie.
Hey, I'm just checking to make sure there's no killer in here waiting to off you like he did your little sister.
What did you say?
I had not felt that pig Milton to get a leading role just to die here with second-rate celebrities like you two! Dewey!
Dale, Jennifer!
Dewey!
Dale, Jennifer!
Dewey!
Dale!
Hi, this is Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th, Part 3, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 208. And this time we're heading, well, not quite back to Woodsboro. Well, we're going back to a set of Woodsboro. Anyway, it all become clear because we're covering the third go-around for the Scream franchise in 2000 Scream 3. And we're joined, as we were, I think, how long ago was it, Jim? It was, I think it's 2 years ago, wasn't it? We covered Scream 2.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And you joined us then. Jim's a great friend to the show, and so we're delighted to have you back. Because I remember I listened back to the beginning of the Scream 2 episode, and you talked a little bit about how much the Scream franchise meant to you. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we talked a little bit off there amongst ourselves about the kind of future of the Scream franchise, and it'll be interesting. Since we spoke a couple of years ago, there's been quite a few developments with the TV series and various things, and obviously the presumably we talked about Scream 5 is in development, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But you still, I presume, as you were keen to do Scream 3, and obviously we're very keen to have you back, you were excited to be talking about this number 3.
Oh, I'm always excited to be talking with you guys about any horror movies. So yeah, but I love the Scream franchise. I love Wes Craven, so I'm ready to do it.
Excellent. Okay, right. We're to return to Woodsboro. So, guys, it's we're back again. We're sort of doing this kind of slightly sort of time travel-y thing because we've already recorded the next episode of the Hysteria Continues. So we're doing things slightly out of sync. So we spoke in our, I think, the Unseen episode, which we've already recorded, but we're just sort of saying we're obviously acknowledging what's happening with everyone out there with the coronavirus, but obviously we are a safe haven of escapism on the Hysteria Continues. So we want you all to keep safe and healthy, but to let you know that we're gonna give you a little sort of hour and a half away from it all, going back to the year 2000, back to Scream 3. But before we do that, should we talk about what we've been watching recently? Because I know there's been, because a lot of us have been staying home, we've been watching a lot of telly and a lot of films. So Jim, have you seen anything? You
guys can stop me if you've already spoken to any of these. I saw The Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you guys talk about that one already?
I want to see it.
No, I want to see it. Yeah. How did you see it?
I saw it in theaters right before everything went shut down.
Oh, very cool.
And I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was really clever and well acted, and I don't know. I was a big fan of it. I was a little surprised that it was pushed back for so long and kind of just dropped, into theaters in February.
It's from what I've heard about it, is kind of it sounded intriguing, but from people who said it's quite an extreme experience, if maybe not necessarily in violence, but actually kind of mood-wise. It's kind of, is it kind of something akin to like Hereditary, that type of sort of oppressive feel to the movie?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would feel like, and not to put down Ari Aster at all, because I do really enjoy Hereditary, but I feel like Hereditary tries a bit harder with that atmosphere, where this is just kind of, not that Hereditary wasn't acting driven, but there's not a whole slew of characters and backstory and stuff like Hereditary has. It's very, very quick and very just to the fact that they're just, stranded in this cabin lodge in the middle of nowhere. So it was it felt a little less trying than Hereditary, but I mean, nonetheless, I thought it was awesome. And I love Riley Keough, who plays the lead. She was in the house that Jack built, trying to think, Under the Silver Lake, other things, but she did a wonderful job, losing her sanity a bit. But yeah, it was great. I highly, highly recommend it.
Excellent. Well, when it eventually comes to streaming, which I imagine it will do relatively soon, I presume none of the rest of you guys have seen it?
No, not yet.
No.
I don't even know if I've even heard of it. Sounds good, though.
But there was a bit of a buzz about it a few months ago, and I think it got limited release in the States, but then obviously everything's gone a bit too, well, as we know, with everything's gone slightly out of whack. So, but I'm sure it will become to streaming very soon. But no, well, thank you, Jim. Anything else?
I saw The Invisible Man.
Okay.
Any of you get to see that yet?
Yeah, I think we've all seen it. I know that's one that would.
We're actually all going to talk about that one. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I just know I really, really enjoyed that one as well. That was a lot of fun. I got to see that in theaters right before the theater shut down as well. And I thought it sounded like it was getting a little overhyped before I got to it, but then I just really, really had a blast watching it. I thought it started out really intense, and it just kind of never let you go from the opening till the end.
Did you see it, Nathan, as well? You saw it, and
yes,
Erik.
I saw it.
Yeah, but I know, Joseph, you were very taken with it, weren't you?
Yes, I think the titular Invisible Man, I think he does a few boneheaded things to kind of tip his hat in the film. They kind of seem uncharacteristically, I guess they're out of character is what I'm trying to say. But the movie is such a finely tuned, suspense mechanism through and through. There's a few really good, I guess you'd call them jump scares. This film doesn't really use jump scares all that much, but there's one in particular. I can't say where it's at, where it's set, or what happens or anything like that without spoiling it. But there's just one in particular that just really got me. And, typically jump scares don't really get me. And, but this did. And so I have to tip my hat to this film. It's a lot of good fun. It takes something like domestic abuse and somehow makes it feel like a popcorn thriller, and it's a damn good thriller. So yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of this movie.
Cool. Okay. What about you, Erik?
Yeah, I would agree with Joseph. I thought it was pretty darn outstanding. I love Invisible Man type movies. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hollow Man and even the sequel Hollow Man 2, which is a direct-to-video thing starring Christian Slater. So this one, as Joseph was saying, like the opening is done without dialogue. As I can say what happens. Our lead character is seen trying to sneak out of her boyfriend's house without him waking up, and it's all done. It's all done so brilliantly. And then there are a couple of outstanding scenes. I won't mention what they are, but there's two in particular that just really, I wouldn't say they made me jump, but they really surprised me. I just thought the whole package was just expertly put together. As Joseph was saying, it takes a very serious subject. What?
You just said the whole package is expertly put together.
It was. Stop being rude. I'm sorry, Jim. You have to witness this rudeness from this man. Like you were saying, it takes a very serious subject, makes it into a really entertaining popcorn thriller. I mean, this poor woman has to go through a lot in the movie. And it is kind of frustrating when, people aren't believing her as such. But I'll leave it at that. But I thought it was outstanding. I thought it deserved every bit of praise it got from the critics. And
James Wan gets a lot of the credit for the first Saw film, but I think Lee Whannell is someone you keep an eye on because it's a very well written movie and very well paced and very well acted. I'd say deserving of all the praise it's getting. I loved it.
I loved it too.
Excellent. What about you, Nathan?
Just count me in with love it. I, like Erik and Joseph were saying, I don't want to say too much because there's a lot of scenes that if you go in not knowing that they're there, you will appreciate them like that much more. It's a really good movie, great suspense, very well done. I would love to see more, more horror releases from Lee Whannell.
Well, I'd kind of agree with all of that. I would say possibly, if I was going to pick fault with it, I'd say it probably was a little bit over long. It didn't really need to be sort of 2+ hours, isn't it?
I think it's just bang on 2 hours, isn't it?
2 hours, but having said that, it's kind of testament to how well it's done that it actually kind of held my attention all the way through. But also I was particularly kind of interested. I thought it's interesting that they've kind of jettisoned that whole Universal Monsters, that old style kind of thing for the last 20 years or so, or since The Mummy and all that, the whole action, everything was all the kind of the Mummy or the Wolfman, and everything was all kind of basically on Van Helsing. It was all kind of action based, which has its place, but actually going back and actually trying to make them scary again, I think is interesting. So it'd be interesting to see what else they do with the with that whole universe, really.
It's a shame that it kind of got pulled from the theaters with its whole COVID-19 thing going on, but I think it's made quite a bit of good money on the whole streaming thing. I know they were charging $20 just to see it, so I had to pay $20 to see it. But I mean, I hope this COVID thing. What I'm saying is, I hope it doesn't put a damper in any more of the kind of the throwbacks to the Universal monsters, because if they're as good as the Invisible Man, I welcome them. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think universal praise for Invisible Man. You see, that's a clever joke there,
Universal.
Eric. Just take note.
That was very clever.
Thank you.
Yeah, beyond this world, like even aliens will agree.
Well, I wouldn't quite go there, but thank you. Let us know when the spaceship lands, Nathan. So, anything else, Jim?
The last thing I watched while I was, on the couch during all this COVID business, is I caught up. I had DVR'd it, but I hadn't watched it yet. Was the first season of What We Do in the Shadows from FX. That's based off the mockumentary. I don't know if you guys saw that at all. Kind of horror comedy.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Jim, because What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, is actually in my recently seen. I watched that earlier before this whole COVID thing.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the TV show, it's one season so far. I think season 2 comes back in the next week or two on FX, and so it's all streaming on Hulu, but it's really entertaining and really got some great cameos, moves real quickly. Yeah, and it was just, I was laughing out loud at it, which I don't do far too often by myself watching things, so highly recommended for me.
I've seen I've seen the film when it came out, but I actually started watching the series. So I've only seen about 2 or 3 episodes of the series, but I really enjoyed it. So I need to catch up with the rest of it.
I watched the whole series. Like, I love Guillermo because he desperately wants to be a vampire so badly. He's just so hilarious and hysterical, and he's one of those people that he'll try to make something better, but he makes it even worse. So Wes, he always says that I'm Guillermo. I try to make stuff better, but I somehow find a way to make it worse.
Well,
that's a term of endearment right there.
Yeah.
But I would say if anyone was like that on the podcast, it'd be Erik.
Hey, shut up. You whore. Chalk-faced whore.
Oh, there it is.
So, well, excellent. Well, Jim, is anything else?
Nope, that's what I've got.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, Joseph, is there anything else you want to talk about? I know we were waiting for the Invisible Man for this episode, but was there anything else that caught your fancy?
Yeah, just What We Do in the Shadows, which I like the movie. I like the idea of, like, you get these 4 vampires from different time periods, and they're all just dumb. They're all dumb characters. It's a good movie just to sit around and just kind of shut off your brain and partake in alcohol or other substances. And I enjoyed it, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I haven't seen the TV show, but yeah, I did like the movie. Another movie I watched, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because you guys have already talked about it, is I finally saw I See You, the one with Helen Hunt. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, of course.
I do, yes.
Yes. I didn't really like it. I liked the idea of them rewinding and going back and seeing it from a different perspective, but I just didn't care. Like the plot twist, I didn't care. I pretty much guessed half of what was going on, like, right off the bat. So when they revealed it, I was like, okay. The other half I didn't really guess, but at the same time, I just didn't care. And it's like Helen Hunt's character just kind of vanishes like halfway through the film. I mean, I know they kind of have to, considering how it kind of rewinds on itself, but she's kind of important to the story, and yet the way she's kind of just brushed to the side just kind of bothered me. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy that as much as I wanted to.
Well, fair enough. Have you seen that, Jim?
I haven't yet, but it's on my radar, on my watch list.
Cool. Okay. Right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Anything else?
No, that's it for this week.
Okay. Well, how about you, Nathan?
No, the only thing I had was The Invisible Man, because it's it's not been that long since we recorded. So
okay. Right. Erik, how about you?
No, all I had was The Invisible Man, and it's not that long since we recorded.
How dare you?
Did we talk
No, it's
about,
true.
Did we talk about the Black Christmas remake, or did we?
Oh,
not?
we didn't actually. We didn't. I don't think.
Oh yeah, we saw that.
I would love to talk about that.
Well, what was your take on it, Jim?
I'm a huge, as we all are, huge fan of the original, and always have been. I've got memorabilia. I've been to the house. I've done it all, and so I thought it looked horrible. Really disappointing, was not looking forward to it at all. And then, I mean, it's not a remake by any means of the original, but I went and saw it with my roommate, and we were like, I mean, that was kind of fun. I'm not as angry at it as I thought it would be, as I thought I would be, but I mean, it still was, a mess of a film. But I wasn't as angry as I thought I would be. I guess that's my review of that.
Okay, glowing. Nathan, what were your thoughts on the Black Christmas remake?
Well, I think that you guys probably expected me to really love this one. So, I mean, it should probably come as no surprise that I did end up loving it a lot. I kind of understand, what you're saying, because I expected to be kind of angry as well, just because, all the trailers didn't really look that appealing to me. And everything I saw about it, I don't know, just didn't really excite me. But then I watched it and I really, really enjoyed it. I was like, this is actually a lot of fun. And when we finally get behind what's really going on, it is just so ridiculously absurd. I couldn't help but just love it. So, yes, loved it.
Okay. What about you, Erik?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I only saw the trailer once. When did it premiere? It was probably last summer, was it? And I couldn't really remember why there was all this hoopla about it being the worst thing ever by the time the film came out. But I certainly was not expecting it to go in the directions it did. I don't know if we're allowed to say anything about it, but it goes off on its very own bizarre tangents, and that came as a real surprise to me. And for that whole purpose, I really enjoyed it because it did surprise me. And I mean, as we were saying, it's not a remake of the original Black Christmas or even the remake of the remake. No, it is a remake of the remake. It's the 2006 one. This is not a slasher movie at all. Would you agree?
Not really. No. I mean,
No.
it's almost.
But there's a great yeah. I'm sorry. There's a great scene in it that reminds me of The Exorcist 3, and I'm assuming it's deliberately an homage to the iconic scene in Exorcist 3.
Oh, it had to have been.
Yes. And no, I was pleasantly surprised, but I think I said on the next episode, which we recorded already, that I'm a bit of a Nathan when it comes to big budget studio movies. I kind of like the ones that get all the negative reviews. But I enjoyed Black Christmas 2019 quite a lot. It's not quite up there with The Invisible Man, but I enjoyed it. Well worth watching.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Erik. What about you, Joseph?
I've not seen it, but I have read a full spoiler synopsis, so I know everything that happens. It sounds really awful, and I will watch it, but I'm just not really in a hurry right now.
I think for me, it was. I can understand why they marketed it as a remake of Black Christmas, but apart from nods to like the name of the cat and a few bits and pieces, like the basic idea of sorority girls home for Christmas and sort of being isolated. I think if I rewatched it, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. I think because it went in a direction, it reminded me of like some kind of zaniness or craziness, without giving anything away, really, that you might get in like a 1970s TV horror movie. It's something. Yeah. It goes in a direction that you suddenly like in those. I know those kind of The Initiation of Sarah or one of those kind of things, and which I think was probably like an inspiration for it. And I find that it's fine. And I think if I knew that going in, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. I think it was just, and there was a kind of fatal flaw in the logic for me of towards the end of the movie, where when they find out what's going on, and then they kind of essentially a load of people die, which completely goes against the film's own logic, which I found a bit strange. But I think I would have preferred if it was called something completely different and wasn't wrapped up in the Black Christmas mythos, because it isn't really a Black Christmas movie. But it's something I look forward to watching again, but knowing what I'm going to get, put it that way. So but talking of, you said that was everything, wasn't it, Erik? Well,
Sorry?
actually, no. Sorry, we've already gone past you. Sorry, I was trying to remember who we hadn't covered. But just another film that I watched. I just remembered on Netflix was Vivarium with Imogen Poots, who was also in Black Christmas remake, and of course I think she was originally in 28 Months Later, British actress, and I think it's an Irish movie. Have you heard of it, Erik?
It's from an Irish director, yeah.
Right.
It's not. I don't think it's an Irish film as such. Yeah, I have heard of it. I think it was due a theatrical release around now, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's on Netflix, so I think it's probably not going to get a theatrical release. But it's.
I think it's on Netflix for you guys. I don't think we have it on Netflix. I think we have it on demand because I'm very interested in seeing it.
Okay. Well, I'd liked it. I mean, it's got Jesse Eisenberg as well as Imogen Poots as this kind of young couple who are looking to get a starter home. And they go to an estate agent met by this kind of creepy guy played by Jonathan Harris, who kind of takes them to this estate where all the houses are painted green. Everything looks fake in so much everything is identical, and there's no one else has moved in. And they go into this house, and the estate agent disappears. And when they go outside, they can't leave this estate. They go round and round. They just can't leave it. I mean, it's not really giving much away because that's the whole basis of the movie. And they end up with this baby turns up, and they're kind of told that in a note that the only way they can escape is if they basically raise this child. So that's as much as I'm going to say. But it's this kind of Kafkaesque kind of nightmare sort of thing. It's a bit like if you sort of like what was that film? The one with Jim Carrey. Was it Jim Carrey? The one when he was living. The Truman Show. The Truman Show. But that kind of false.
Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
That's the one. But that idea of living in a very false kind of environment that it's not real, and so this couple, how they kind of cope with this days going to weeks, going to months of being in this kind of very fake kind of sort of nightmarish reality. I liked it. I liked it quite a lot, actually. I thought it was really well done. So it's probably not for everyone, but without giving too much away, that was definitely worth a watch. And the only other thing I'm watching at the moment is a Spanish series called Toy Boy, which hasn't got any horror connotations or anything, but it does start with a go-go dancer waking up on a yacht with a headless corpse on fire. So that's quite arresting. So anyway, yes. That is our recently seen. So I guess that means that we're going to go into our feature presentation. So after this, I'll come back with a short synopsis, and then Jim, you'll tell us why you chose or why you were keen to come back for Scream 3. So here's the TV spot for 2000's Scream 3.
Hello, Sydney. Welcome to the final act.
There is one mystery more terrifying than you know.
Who is this?
There is one secret that can never be revealed until the end.
Get behind you!
What do you know about trilogies?
All I know about movie trilogies is that in the third one, all bets are off.
Scream 3.
Don't panic.
Rated R. Only in theaters Friday, February 4th.
In the final installment to this trilogy, or it was final, but not so final, a murder spree begins to happen again, this time targeted towards the original Woodsboro survivors and those associated with the movie inside a movie, Stab 3. Sydney must face the demons of the past to stop the killer or killers. So, 2000 Scream 3. So, Jim, do you want to tell us a little bit again about why the Scream franchise is so special to you, and why you were keen to guest again on part 3?
Well, I was, just to kind of reiterate what I said when we did Scream 2, I was a kid when, the whole series was coming out in theaters, and I got to see 2 and 3 in theaters. And the first one just really turned me unofficially to the slasher genre. I was always, a horror fan, but it got me, really into investigating those titles at my local video store, all the, prom night, everything Randy's throwing around in the first one. And I kind of attribute the series to, I'm a huge Wes Craven fan too. And so, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'm a big fan of this franchise. Now, you'll hear me as we talk about it now. This is definitely my least favorite, and I think for good reason for a lot of us. So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I mean, we'll expand more as we kind of chat amongst ourselves. But I'm just interested to see, Erik. That wasn't a double entendre. Well, let's come on to you first, Erik. Shall we? What are your thoughts on Scream 3?
Well, yeah. Well, I first saw Scream 3 actually on DVD because I think this came out on DVD in the States before it opened theatrically over here. Because these were the days when there was this huge sort of window between US theatrical openings and European ones. It could be up to 6 months. But so I didn't go see Scream 3 in the cinema. I saw it on my imported DVD from Amazon. And I remember not really being that pushed. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Scream series. I like it to a point. I find them quite watchable, and then not terribly rewatchable after that for me. But Scream 3 I haven't seen since I suppose watched it maybe once or twice back in 2000. So it's almost 20 years. So it was kind of like watching it for the first time, because I couldn't remember huge amounts about the film. And I'd actually thought it was really kind of decent. It has a reputation, as Jim was saying, of being one of the weakest of the series for many fans, but I personally didn't see a drop in quality from the first two films. I thought it was kind of on a par with the first two. It's definitely more far-fetched, definitely, and that's saying something. For me, the flaw with the Scream series is that I just don't find Ghostface interesting at all. I find him kind of annoying, to be honest. He talks way too much and he behaves kind of like this spoiled teenager is the impression I get. I prefer silent, mysterious, ominous killers, as I keep saying every time. I miss also the creative murders he got in 80s slasher movies. I think Scream kind of just overdoes the knife kill a bit too much for me. I mean, I know in the first one you had that great Rose McGowan death in the garage door, but apart from that, it tends to be a lot of just knives in backs, knives in stomachs, and I find that it gets a bit tedious. And then there's the character of Dewey and his relationship with Gail. I'm not that interested, but there are lots of things I do like in Scream 3. For starters, there's Gail Weathers' haircut, which I know we're going to talk about quite a lot. It is quite something to see. I don't know what she was thinking or what the hairdressing team on Scream 3 were thinking, but it's really distracting anytime Gail is on screen and you see that ridiculous fringe. It just looks like an ill-fitting wig. I don't know, maybe it was a wig, I don't know. Parker Posey for me is the outstanding element of this film. I just love her portrayal of the actress who plays Gail in Stab 3, which is the film within the film. Her character, she's like an American version of something out of Absolutely Fabulous. She's just incredibly funny, and for me, she's the best thing about the film. And I love the cameos as well, like Roger Corman, who's kind of almost playing himself, and Carrie Fisher playing a Carrie Fisher lookalike. I love that scene as well. That was quite fun. So I do enjoy the film up to a point. Mostly it's the non-slasher parts that I'm really into in this one. I find the humor in terms of the humor, this is the best of the four films, I think, for me, because I find parts of it are really quite funny indeed. The slasher element, I'm not that engaged in, and anytime I watch a Scream film, I tend to tune out in the last 20 minutes when I should probably be sitting on the edge of my seat going, ooh, I wonder who the killer is. But once it gets to the slasher elements, I tend to just sort of, my mind tends to drift in that. But I did enjoy watching Scream 3. It was certainly not a chore to sit through. I'm just not that invested in the series, I'm afraid. I've said this before, of the sort of renaissance of slasher films around that era, I would go more towards Urban Legend and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those two franchises I thought were better for me personally, because they're a bit stupider, and I'm a bit stupid, so there we go. But yeah, I did enjoy most of Scream 3. Probably not one I would return to very often, but then that applies to all of the Scream films for me.
Well, thank you. Nathan, how about you?
Oh, I love Scream 3. I love all the Scream movies. I think they're all a lot of fun. Scream 3, to me, I love just how ridiculous it is. I mean, there is no voice changer in this world that you can use to sound like anybody you want. Like that's like something out of a sci-fi movie, in my opinion. And I'm also wondering if the killer had that, he could have probably been rich if he would have just marketed that instead of going after all these people for such a ridiculous motive. I mean, the killer's motive is ridiculous. We can get into that in a little while. But I know it sounds like I'm being negative about it, but all this like absurdity is kind of what I love about it. It's just really ridiculous, over the top. I don't know. I find it just a lot of fun to sit through. I love just the absurdity of something like, the killer's going to go after Sarah earlier in the movie, and she could have ran out the door. The killer had no possible way of knowing that she would run down this hallway after getting a scary call and run into the room exactly where he would be hiding. But that's one thing I love about it, because I mean, it's like 80 slashers to me.
It's the iced moment.
Oh yes. But yeah, it's just a great movie, a lot of fun. I could kind of see what people are talking about. This one goes for comedy than the previous two. But I mean, I'm like Erik. I loved Parker Posey in this. I think she was amazing. I love how over dramatic she is when they're like, well, the killer's killing people based on the script. Well, who's next? And then she's very dramatic and she picks it up and goes, who's next? Or who dies next? And she hands it out and goes, you do. It's just so over the top and just ridiculous. And then of course, like when they walk out, she jumps up into Patrick Warburton's arms. I don't know. She's just amazing in this movie. She's definitely a standout. But for me, maybe as much as Courtney Cox's haircut.
Ooh, high praise indeed.
The bangs, I mean, I got to say they were something else.
Do you think it was an Emo Phillips tribute?
It looked like it.
Oh, you think?
Well, I don't know.
Well, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, thumbs up from me.
Excellent. Thank you, Nathan. What about you, Joseph?
Well, I mean, I know we've mentioned Courtney Cox's hair, and I know we probably will again. But can we talk a little bit about Patrick Dempsey's hair? Because it is an absolutely magnificent head of hair. And I imagine he must wake up 3 hours early each day before his brutal shift of hanging around movie sets to make sure it's perfectly coiffed. Scream 3 for me is a film I walked out of back in February of 2000 thinking, okay, what happened? The meta, certainly that cynical bite was gone. And, what was left was the same old cliches the first two films spent the majority of their running time lambasting. But 20 years later, my opinion has completely changed. And I now find Scream 3 to be my favorite of the series. And it's partly because what Scream fans hate, the reliance on goofiness and those said cliches, that stuff really, really, really appeals to me. And Scream 3 is just a perfectly dumb, boy, is it dumb, a perfectly dumb popcorn slasher film. I think I've grown past that sort of snarky deconstruction style that made the first two Scream films so popular. And the more I watch those films, the more I dislike them. So I've kind of stopped watching them so I can retain some joy from those. But, what I basically look for in a slasher film, more so these days than I did in, say, my aggro Gen X days in the 90s is just boiling the slasher down to its essentials. And that's, a large body count. Doesn't necessarily have to be gory, and Scream 3 certainly isn't gory. And, just letting the characters vamp off of one another in this sort of, Scooby-Doo fashion while a mystery psycho in a mask picks them off one by one. Scream 3 is that and more. I mean, let's talk about the killer who, spoiler alert, turns out to be Roman Bridger, the director of Stab 3, and shock horror, he is also Sidney's long-lost half-brother. I mean, what we're essentially watching here is an episode of Guiding Light with some sharp knives about, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Roman's motive, I mean, it's so complicated and absurd. And what I find particularly asinine about the entire thing is he kills more people who weren't involved in this whole maternal abandonment issue than he does the actual people who set him on this murderous path. I mean, I know he's killed them both, but he ends up killing way more people who had nothing to do with any of this. And so the question I have to ask myself is, does anything that happened in the entire Scream series even matter? I mean, it's that ludicrous of a motive and that convenient voice changer. I mean, first of all, I'll set aside the fact that this technology in 2000 is really pushing it. But why did he put his own voice in there? Because there's that one scene where Dewey and Gale find the voice changer in a closet and they click it on. And it says, Dewey's got our voices, and it's his voice. Why would you record your own voice if you're the killer? And more to the point, how in the world did he get Maureen's voice on there? I mean, she's dead. And even, I mean, his motive is like, his actions even cause this sort of ripple effect that is basically Scream 2 and posthumously Scream 4. I mean, 2 people wronged this guy, and now 100 fucking people are dead. I mean, he's such a jerk. Roman is a jerk. Scream 3 for me, I mean, it's just like that. It's just it's not concerned with reality at all. I mean, when we last saw Dewey and Gale, they were kind of obviously, and, you know, finally, they were kind of past that whole back and forth, and Gale kind of realized, you know, there's more to life than, you know, her career. And so she gets in the ambulance with Dewey, and, you know, it's kind of that live happily ever after moment. And yet 5 minutes into this movie, they act like they've hated one another forever. It's like none of that matters. None of that, you know, that's all just gone. And poor Cotton Weary, I mean, it's bad enough he has a stupid name, but he gets framed for murder. He gets sent to jail. His girlfriend's murdered, you know, while he's on the phone with the killer, and he dies trying to defend her. And she thinks he's the killer. I mean, so basically he was pointless. His entire story arc no longer matters. And the one thing I will give Scream 3 credit for is it predates that whole Me Too movement with this kind of prescient subplot about the rape and humiliation of this young Hollywood actress. So kudos for, you know, retaining some of that statement amidst all the idiocy in the film. But when we boil it all down, I think it's that idiocy that I loved. And, you know, I do have to mention Parker Posey as well, who is just incredible, as Erik said, as the faux Gale. She's essentially the best character in the entire film. I mean, Dewey, Gale, and especially Sydney, they play second and kind of third bananas to characters, to the, you know, better characters like Parker Posey. And I love Patrick Warburton as the bodyguard. He's like at the studio. But yeah, I love Scream 3. I think it's just a pure slasher film. It's dumb. It's popcorny. It's appealing. It's fun. I mean, what more can I say? I think I've said a lot, and I can hear somebody giggling in the background, Nathan.
I was on mute.
Somebody was giggling in the background. I heard it. But anyway, yeah.
Me, but I was laughing with you, not at you.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I love Scream 3. I think it's a lot of fun. It's just so stupid. I loved it.
Excellent.
I like what you said, just to interject quickly about the Me Too movement, because it's so fascinating, because this is all backlot, you know, Miramax, Bob and Harvey
Dimension
on the film.
It's very eerie.
Angelina has that line where she's like, I did not, you know, sleep with that pig Milton to get the role of Sydney and stuff. Like, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah, it's very prescient almost.
You know, one thing I was wondering, what kind of movie was Stab 3 going to be? Because the sets for that movie was basically the sets from Scream Part 1.
Well, it's called Return to Woodsboro. I just don't know what they were going to do in this.
Maybe they all went back and moved back home, and the Ghostface Killer went after them again.
Well, wasn't it being a bit meta? Wasn't there? I did read somewhere, I think, that the original story was to go back to Woodsboro for Scream 3. Is that right?
Yeah,
that is true.
So maybe that was just being meta in itself. I mean, just throw my tuppence in. I mean, I think at the time when I first saw it, I thought the whole thing about running around the mansion was very Scooby-Doo, but not necessarily in a good way. It felt like that Scream, in its own way, and Scream 2, they were kind of, when they came out, there was this whole thing, we talked about it before, but this idea, it kind of kickstarted what they termed trendy horror, which I didn't have a problem with, but a lot of horror fans really hated some of these movies, especially I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it was kind of the idea of all the kind of the pretty young stars from the the sort of soap operas and the various teen shows were on these slash movies, and so the people had a problem with them. But Scream kind of kick-started obviously that late 90s or mid to late 90s slasher revival, even though at the time the critics thought it was actually going to kill the slasher movie. It was going to be the final nail in the coffin, and rather than actually reinvigorating it. But Scream especially was so cutting edge, and Scream 2 to a lesser extent was, but it seemed to me that Scream 3, when I first saw it, I remember thinking it felt a bit hackneyed, it kind of a bit, having this Hollywood mansion, it just felt a bit redundant. And I've kind of done a real 180 on that I think if it fits perfectly. I mean, what I would say is I think the opening, The Murder of Cotton Weary, is the weakest of the openings of the first three Scream movies. It doesn't hold a candle to the kind of the Drew Barrymore scene in the original and the movie theatre scene in the sequel. So
first of all, it's not scary like you said, and second of all, I kind of felt bad for Cotton Weary because he's already been through enough. I mean, just let him ride off into the sunset and kill somebody else.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think it felt a little, to my mind, again, I think some of the whole thing about, the Randy coming back and saying all bets are off, anyone could die. And really they took a bit of a safe way out with this by killing Cotton Weary as the kind of the only character of the main. It felt, if Scream 3 has got a bit of a fault, it feels a little bit self-congratulatory to everyone involved. It felt, I think, with Wes Craven, especially Courtney Cox and David Arquette, it felt like Neve Campbell didn't really want to be there, and I don't think she probably did. I don't think she really saw herself as this kind of Scream queen. In fact, I think she kind of kicked against it quite a lot. Having said that, we've all within the frame of all of that, I still actually think watching it again is for me the opposite to perhaps Erik, is actually when it does kick into that kind of the second half of the movie. It's when it's got rid of basically jettisoned what admittedly fun celeb cameos, but it feels like the film's just being a kind of a bit sort of say self-congratulatory, and it's kind of like, hey, look who we've got in the film now, Silent Bob, and sort of those kind of things kind of stop it. It feels like it's kind of like it's almost like a Universal tour. You're just chugging around to the next celeb cameo, and as fun as they are, it's not until it actually shifts gear, and then you've got the scene with the house blowing up. With Matt Kessler being blown up in the gas explosion, which is perfect kind of comment on Hollywood of everything going big, kind of this Die Hard moment, this massive explosion. But actually, when it gets to that scene and they're running around the Hollywood mansion, I found it really does work as a Scooby-Doo type film, and it's it feels like I could almost like remember being a kid and running around trying to scare each other and pretending you're being chased by a monster. It kind of goes back to that sort of, it's just that fun Scooby-Doo thing, and they're not taking it too seriously, but they're having fun with it, so I kind of really like that. I mean, I think the whole explanation of who the killer was, I think it works within the context, although of course it was a really shitty career move for him, wasn't it, really, to kill his own cast for his own movie, but within the context of it, I think it worked really well. But it hadn't really occurred to me, the whole Miramax thing and what's gone on with Me Too, and there's subversiveness potentially with what was going on with this, which would have gone completely over Weinstein's head, I would imagine. Whether or not that was engineered, it was kind of quite an interesting idea if that was the case. But it does tip its hat to more of the kind of more ridiculous slasher sort of elements of something like Urban Legend, and going back to the films that we love, Happy Birthday to Me, and those kind of films where it gets sillier and sillier. I mean, for me, the apex of silly is the scene where Emily Mortimer as Angelina is in the bathroom and hiding from Sydney, and she's wearing the killer's boots and the outfit, and has got the phone changer and the mask, and she just says, "Oh, I just wanted to take some souvenirs from the movie." It's just that kind of, it's so silly, but there's a lot of fun to be had with that.
I love the dude's I can't remember his name, the African American fellow. He's like, "Don't look at me, I didn't take shit."
Yeah. But Jim, what else would you like to add to what we talked about with is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think that it's just, and we can, when we get to trivia, talk more about this. think what I've realized, over the years and even investigating it now, I think it's just kind of a sloppy movie. The trivia speaks to that about how quickly they threw it together. And I think it's just very apparent. And like, you can definitely tell, which again, this is in the trivia, how the Weinsteins really post-Columbine wanted to go more comedy, and Wes Craven kind of brought them back more to the slasher element. And really looking into this, it seems like too, a lot of the moments I like of the film, like the going back to Woodsboro, that whole chase with Sidney and Ghostface on the old 96 Scream sets was all inserted by Wes Craven. It wasn't in the original draft by the screenwriter Aaron Kruger. It was something that Wes Craven thought should be added, and according to the trivia, he paid for those sets to be constructed, and I think it's one of the most successful moments of the movie. I think it gets a little wacky with the Scooby-Doo-ness and humor, but I love Parker Posey. If there's anybody to put in that role to be doing that, she was, wonderful casting choice. And then I just, I feel like we are missing Sidney for a lot of the film, and so it gets very Gale and Dewey oriented there, where we're following them. And I think it was Erik who was saying that, I love Gale and Dewey, but I don't care about them that much, where I need to follow them for 2 hours trying to, unsuccessfully, mind you, trying to find the killer, which is funny because then in Scream 4, they have a whole conversation about how they're really awesome at finding the killers, but they never do. But I think the successes of Scream 3 are really found, again, in like Neve Campbell's performance, in kind of the actors doing the best of what they can with, a hatcheted script. And I think the weaknesses really fall in just kind of too much story. The third act makes zero sense with Roman's motive and everything. But yeah, I guess I just, it's a lot of fun, but it's hackneyed for sure.
I would agree. I mean, one other thing that I thought didn't work, especially, was the whole slight supernatural thing with Sidney's mother, Maureen Prescott, sort of coming back, the ghost at the window, that type of thing. It didn't kind of quite work, but I did like that
was a dream sequence, wasn't it?
Well, was it a dream sequence?
Yeah, it was a dream sequence, but it still felt really out of place. It felt like something from a Mario Bava.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a Scream film.
No,
it kind of feels like they were playing it like they were trying to go supernatural with it until the punchline is the dream sequence, which is just weird.
Yeah,
but it still did. Yeah, it still felt out of place.
But the one thing I did like, and I was a bit of a stretch, but did you notice the nod to Mrs. Voorhees, Alice throwing string at Mrs. Voorhees when
no,
Sidney,
where no,
well, it's a real stretch, but it's like in the scene where Sidney's running away from the killer in the set, and she runs past the catering table and picks up a bowl of cheese puffs and throws it at the killer.
Oh,
did you?
I saw that because she runs by the table and she kind of just takes her hand and like throws whatever's on the table, but it's like a bowl of cheese puffs and maybe some silverware.
Yeah. It just made me laugh. I think it was a real stretch, but I don't think it was really a nod to that. But it did make me laugh.
Scream 3 actually does have one like pretty effective scare moment. It's when Sidney's in the sets and Roman comes in there and he's under the sheet and he's like, "Give mommy a kiss and we'll make up." And he lunges at her and he's got that sheet. I thought that was scarier than the Ghostface costume. I would like to see a killer who looked like that. I thought that was kind of creepy.
I agree. And well, it's fun. And I would say, to all of the films, I think Neve Campbell does a really great job, particularly, growing up doing these films where she really is believable that, okay, now I'm going through this a third time. Okay, now I'm going through this a fourth time. Like, what trauma do I have to exhibit to go through this? So it's fun to watch her react to that stuff too.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, should we move on to some background? Because I think I've got some, for my part, that I've got some reviews from the time, just kind of snippets of reviews from the time, just to put it in some kind of context. But Jim, my understanding of this was because obviously famously Kevin Williamson didn't come back to write this, but then I read somewhere that he had written or he had done a draft or done something which had been rejected. Do you know, can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. Hopefully I don't get too confusing with what it seems like pre-production kind of went down with Scream 3. Because if you look at the timeline, it's really bizarre because they were shooting Scream 2 while Scream was still in theater with the intention of basically doing that with number 3. But it as we know, and it kind of gets referenced to in the film, Wes Craven signed on to do the original Scream, and Miramax greenlit Music of the Heart, his Meryl Streep drama film that's based on that true story, because he had been trying to get that off the ground for most of the 90s. So my understanding is they basically said, do this and we'll make this film happen for you. So it seems like 1998, Wes Craven was busy doing Music of the Heart, and Kevin Williamson was busy doing Dawson's Creek, and then he did Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was his directorial debut, and he also wrote it. And then it seems when they were finally ready to come back to Scream 3, Columbine happened. And so they had to completely throw away the original treatment that Kevin Williamson had done, which was that Stu Macher from the first movie, Matthew Lillard, was still alive. He never died. He was in prison, and Sydney went back to Woodsboro because they were filming another stab movie there or something. And basically there was a whole cult of these teenagers in Woodsboro that were killing at his behest, which then, not to get super confusing, but which then that was rejected post-Columbine because they didn't want to really bring these high schoolers back into it at that point. That was going to be the treatment for Scream 5, had Scream 4 been successful without Stu. They were going to use, no spoilers, but the killer from Scream 4. And then when that got kiboshed, that became the plot to The Following, which was the Kevin Bacon Fox TV show Kevin Williamson created a couple years after Scream 4. So that's that series. So then basically what it comes down to is in 99, post-Columbine, Kevin Williamson gets approached by the Weinsteins, writes a new treatment for Scream 3, but basically says, hey, I have to go back and reshoot the end of Teaching Mrs. Tingle because it takes place in a high school with kids chasing Helen Mirren with guns. So I have to go do that because it's due out in August, but I'm happy to write a treatment for you. And then basically they just completely threw that treatment away and stuck Aaron Kruger on it and gave him like 2 weeks to write it. And that's the timeline, my friends.
Okay, well, thank you. Do you know what the treatment that Kevin Williamson wrote that was different? Presuming that was different from the cult of serial, the cult of Stu, or
no, I haven't found more on that except that I believe somewhere in my readings of trivia over the years that it was pretty similar to Scream 4 without the teenage element, but her going back home. And I know that there was an opening they were going to use, if this answers that, there was an opening they were going to use that they were then going to use for Scream 4, and it got cut from Scream 4 as well, where Sydney and her friend are watching a movie and Ghostface comes after them and she ends up pulling a gun and killing Ghostface, and it turns out just to be a fan that was trying to pull a prank on her. So I know that was in the treatment for Scream 3 for the opening. And then when it wasn't used, it was going to be Scream 4, and then it wasn't used. But yeah, I don't know much beyond that.
Oh no, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, how sort of reactive things are. I mean, I know sort of like with completely different with the coronavirus that a lot of movie sets are shut down now, haven't they? And so it's kind of how if you have. I mean, we talked on the next episode, The Unseen, which someone recorded. We talk about The Hunt. Which is the film that got delayed because of a school. Why did it get delayed? It was because there was a shooting, wasn't there?
There was like several shootings in this country.
Well, yes, there's quite. That's too.
It was just they were trying to release it, and there had been like probably multiple gun violent things happened, so they just got pushed back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. So, is it anything else? Any kind of trivia you want to throw away, Jim? Because let's see what else we've got up our sleeves.
I mean, I'm sure I've got a ton, but why don't you guys take it away?
Okay. All right. Well, Nathan,
I've been talking for days.
Sorry. Well, thank you. It's very interesting. That was very well put. But Nathan, what have you got for us?
Nothing.
Oh, Nathan.
Well, all the trivia I had, Jim covered.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
You don't believe me?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
How dare you?
Joseph, how about you?
Okay, the one piece of background that everyone is waiting for, and of which everyone probably already knows, but I'm going to read it anyway. David Arquette is responsible for Courtney's hair don't.
Oh, is he? Okay.
David Arquette, yeah. He suggested she go for a sort of Betty Page look, which led the poor woman to what is demonstrably the worst hairstylist in the world. So you have David Arquette to blame for that haircut.
Oh, dear.
There is a follow-up to that she just put on Instagram like in the last couple of years where she was going for the Betty Page look, but then the hairstylist made a miscut, like slipped and cut too much off the bang and then had to cut across the bangs. But at that point, Courtney, just bring your, she's got that Friends money. They're rolling into season 6. Bring in your own hairstylist at that point. Wear a wig.
Why didn't they just put extensions on the front of her hair?
Why didn't they just wig her?
Yeah. It's weird. Anyway, this one is not really background. It's just kind of an aside, but you'll have to take my word for it because I don't have any real way of proving it because the Internet Archive only goes back so far. But around the time the first Scream film came out, I had a Scream website that was kind of part of a larger movie-based website. And then it eventually turned into an all-horror website, but it was called It's a Scream Baby. And it was the first to kind of offer any sort of background information on the film. I had like a photo gallery and it was some news on Scream 2. I mean, I think this is like late 96, early 97. And I even interviewed the actor who played oh, come on, Mr. Hembry. It was just a joke. I can't remember his name, but and had some other stuff. But one section that I was actually really proud of, and so I may be indirectly responsible for Roman Bridger's motive. It's because I had a third killer theory section on my site where I basically argued that the Ghostface character in the first Scream seemed to pop up in a lot of places that the characters who turned out to be the killer could not have possibly been. I mean, I know now that this is just, movie time, but I argued that, retroactive spoilers here, Billy and Stu from the first film, I argued they were just pawns and they were, killing based off some circumstantial evidence at the behest of someone else. And I also did posit the idea that Sydney's mom played a larger role in everything, but I didn't really quite figure out the whole quote-unquote Hollywood horror angle. But anyway, lo and behold, when I first watched Scream 3 and I saw that a lot of those same ideas that I had on my site were used with the whole third killer theory that the detective posits, I was like, oh, I should sue. But I mean, it's probably just a huge coincidence.
Did you get an attorney?
No, I didn't get an attorney. It's probably just a huge coincidence, but that's one thing I always remember from Scream 3 when I first saw it. It's like, hey, I think someone stole part of my ideas from an old website. But yeah, that's all the background I have on the film.
Well, that would be incredibly
meta. So they stole
meta.
that from you, and they stole Scream 1.
Well, you remember, Nathan, I came up with the idea of Saw, and then Saw came out.
Oh, yeah. This is true. He did, everybody.
I invented Dirty Dancing.
Before Dirty Dancing came out?
Yeah.
But just think how
I
meta.
was carrying watermelons long before Baby.
But Joseph, just imagine how meta what that is if the writer of Scream 3 stole your ideas from a fan site.
The problem is that like once I put that up there, it just kind of ballooned out and onto other sites. So if he did steal it, he could have got it from another site, but it did originate with me.
I mean, he had 2 weeks to write that script, and from what it sounds like from him, it was not a fun time. So.
Yeah, it sounds like he actually did go to some websites and he was like, yeah, let's just see what the fans want, and I'll just write a script around that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. Erik, how about you?
Okay, well, I have. I was looking back through old Fangorias from around this era, and in the October 1999 issue, they say that Kate Hudson had been cast in the film. Doesn't specify what role, but of course that didn't come to pass. I was looking at the box office return for Scream 3, and it's not a huge dip from the previous film. I mean, Scream 1 did 173 million worldwide, Scream 2 did 172, and Scream 3 did 161, which isn't too bad considering that it wasn't getting great reviews. The filming took place from July to September 1999, and as Jim said, it was not long after the Columbine massacre, so they were the producers were anxious to downplay the violence and sort of inject more humor into the film. The other thing I had to look at what the letters page in Fangoria, what people said shortly after the film was released, and it did get a sort of a Marmite reaction from viewers. Gabrielle Francisco says the film feels rushed and tired, and the ending plays like it's taken from a daytime soap opera. Scream 3 is boring. And then an anonymous reader says that they like the reading and the writing, and the ultra surprising ending that tied up all the loose ends of the series. They felt that it concentrated more on the characters than murders and had less of a teeny bopper approach, and they really liked this. Shane Turner recommended moviegoers to bring lots of coffee as he felt the movie was really boring. He thought the characters were annoying, especially Parker Posey. Ooh, controversial.
How dare he?
And he calls it Wes Craven's worst film. Is somebody grating cheese? I'm not sure what's going on in the background.
Sorry, I forgot to mute my mic. I'm doing something right now.
Yeah. Well, ooh. Yeah. Do mute your mic if you're going to be doing that. And finally, Jerry Bowden called it a true horror film that stands strong alongside its predecessors. So it was very much a messy split, as Justin would say, in terms of Fangoria's reader response to the film. And that's all I have. Justin?
Okay, well, thank you, Erik. I've got a few bits and a few other kind of critical reactions from the time. Just an aside, Jenny McCarthy's character dies in her second scene, just like a character. Dimension Films apparently asked critics to keep the plot secret when they did the reviews. Jeffrey Westhoff in the Northwest Herald is quoted saying, "The trickery of a horror movie about a horror movie based on another horror movie doesn't carry into the second act." He said perhaps because Craven had covered this territory in New Nightmare. He said he missed Williamston's sharp wit and pointed out that you can often guess the killer in a movie because they have a deceptively small part from a showy scene at the end. But because there's so many celeb cameos here, he said it was difficult to guess the killer. In the same, actually it's in a different paper, it's interesting, they were sort of saying that Scream 3 was a bit of an anomaly at the time because it said that this kind of teen horror movie was out, and at the time the big horror hits were things like Blair Witch Project, Sixth Sense, The Mummy, Sleepy Hollow and more, so they were more they were moving in different direction. The kind of the teen slasher had kind of seen its day, I've kind of guessed. I mean, they were sort of saying. The Philadelphia Daily News said by now the series has become so lost in its own mirrored funhouse of self-parody that aside from the showbiz in-jokes, there's not much to chew on. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette gave it a semi-positive review and said if Scream was groundbreaking and Scream 2 took the genre to a new level, Scream 3 brings the series to a satisfying conclusion. It won't keep you awake at night, but it will send you screaming into the night. It won't send you screaming into the night either. Just a couple of other things. The Tallahassee Democrat said Scream 3 was thin, but would delight fans. The Tampa Bay Times said throughout the series, Craven changed the rules of slasher films to gleeful anarchy in a trilogy that actually improved from start to finish. He may have ruined the teen meat genre forever by offering so many reasons to never take it seriously again. And lastly, in the Des Moines Register, Jack Garner said, good movie sequels earn their kudos by offering quite literally more of the same. Fans of Scream films, for example, are hoping for more frights, more laughs, and more of what made the popular slasher series unique. The self-commenting parody, too bad, Scream 3 offers less of all three elements. So I kind of guess it was a real mixed bag, but also it's always surprising. I mean, do we know why the given, as Erik was saying, the kind of still pretty decent box office return. I mean, it's only a drop of less than 10 million on the worldwide gross, which is a massive profit for Dimension Films. Is why they didn't move ahead with Scream 4? Is it because?
Well, I think they just wanted to do a trilogy, and for once the studio was like, okay, we'll stop there, and then that was just the reason.
Well, if anyone's seen Friday the 13th Part 4, they know that's not always the case, is it? But it's I just wondered because I got the impression that Neve Campbell wasn't, had a bit of a Jamie Lee Curtis complex by the end of this, that she wanted to move on to do other things.
Yeah, no, I think she was done for a while at that point. I know they talked about it in the years following, about, here and there it'd pop up that, Scream 4 is being talked about and thrown around again. Also, Wes Craven, I don't think he wanted to do a 4 right away. Kevin Williamson didn't want to do a 4 right away. Nev Campbell didn't want to do a 4. So I think that's kind of why they sat on it for so long.
Well, I think we're obviously going to, cover Scream 4 at some point in the future. But I mean, looking into the future, I mean, what were your thoughts on the, because I don't know if we talked about the Scream TV series, the original couple and the kind of TV movie. But then obviously there was the newer version that was out, which I quite enjoyed the first go around with the TV series, but I've quite rarity for me. I couldn't finish the most recent TV Scream adaptation. But I mean, what were your thoughts, Jim? Did you like it? Did you stick with it?
I thought it was a lot of fun. The like you said, the first the one that had the 2 seasons and the Halloween special. I watched that. That was definitely entertaining. Lots of fun to watch. Surprisingly violent for an MTV show. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. I was happy to hear that they were going to turn it around and kind of make it more anthology based, because how many seasons could you go through with the same cast? But then, yeah, I was very disappointed in the last one they did. But it seems like they just kind of threw that on TV with no intention of continuing with the series, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah. I mean, did any of the other guys, did you see any of those, the most recent Scream TV show?
No.
Nope.
No. But Scream 5, is that in development? Is that been officially greenlit? Do we know?
Yeah, it's handed to. Oh my goodness! I had the 2 writers on the tip of my. I had their names in my brain, and now that's gone. But they've written something fairly popular.
Sorry, the directors are assigned as Bettinelli Alpin and Tyler Gillett. Is that them?
As you can see, Jim, we always do our homework.
It still just says Kevin Williamson as a writer.
Well, I read somewhere that it's like a director who's did something somewhat popular more recently has gotten signed on. So it's someone with pedigree, I think.
They did. That's right. They did. They were directors behind Ready or Not.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, that is Matt Bettinelli Alpin and Tyler Gillett. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like they would probably take it into a more, I guess, kind of more farcical comedy approach, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, what are your thoughts, Jim, on it? Do you think? I mean, it says it's on IMDb. It's listing the only cast member as Neve Campbell.
I would either want it to be, the 3 of them returning again to it, and hopefully, Kevin Williamson's got some involvement. Otherwise, I'd want them to kind of do the MTV route and just kind of go into like a new with it, you know what I mean? Or some shared universe, new plot with it. I don't know. And, until I hear more about it, I'm not super stoked on it. But also, I know you guys aren't fans of Scream 4, but I love Scream 4. So I thought Scream 4 was a fun way to go out.
Well, I'm looking forward to revisiting it. But interestingly, as I was looking at IMDb and sort of saw there's 21 days ago, apparently there's another Scream TV show in the works, and it said could land at Netflix. So whilst Scream 5 is, also being prepped for big screen. So it is a franchise that you couldn't kill, put it that way.
Interesting. I didn't hear anything about the Netflix, but it being on Netflix would probably be a lot better than the MTV series. That one had a lot of limitations, especially when they go like 4 or 5 episodes without a single murder. It's a slasher TV show. Ugh. Anyway. But I did enjoy those the first 2 seasons, though. Actually, they were kind of fun.
Yeah, no, they were quite fun. So is there anything else you want to add, Jim, sort of background-wise, that we haven't covered before we
I've got a few. I'll fly through quickly. Couple things that to disprove. One, a lot of trivia you can find online says that Wes Craven shot 3 different endings to throw off, which ending he was going to use. I haven't found that to necessarily be true or from anyone's mouth per se, except that they did shoot 3 different actual like happy endings with Patrick Dempsey's Kincaid character either being there like in at Sydney's house, being there and bandaged up or not being there at all. And those were the 3 endings that they shot, or the 3 different ways they shot that on set. But my understanding is that they didn't really have the time or budget to be shooting and writing 3 different scripts, 3 different killers, etc. And also to disprove the fact that that says a lot of places, there were no test screenings and there were no early screenings for cast and crew and critics to save the spoilers. But timeline-wise, they had 4 months to edit this thing. So I think that was just the studio, using that as an excuse to really give, the editors time to get something done. Because 4 month editing turnaround on a 2-hour film is, not.
Are we to assume that Nev Campbell's character and Patrick Dempsey's character are like a couple at the end?
I think it's kind of it's hinting that, or at least friendly.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if she got some hair tips from him, because that mane is exquisite.
Well, I did wonder.
Are you sure you're straight?
Yes, quite. I've just look. I'm a 40-something man. I recognize male pattern baldness, and I'm just jealous of that magnificent head of hair.
Well, I did notice that I shouldn't read too much into it, but maybe she was having a romantic thing. She left her back door open, didn't she, at the end of the movie?
Hey!
She's letting him know she likes it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's your joke of the week.
Symbolism that she has moved on.
Well, I know that, but I did see it on the because I've still got the Blu-ray, and I haven't even got the Blu-ray. I've got a DVD, and it had alternate ending on there, and I thought, oh well, I'll watch that. I'll see what it was, and I couldn't really. I think it was basically the same ending, but with a couple of shots missing.
I think they had to do a quick reshoot somewhere in there, and I think I read that somewhere, of the ending because she killed him too quickly.
Right.
And the producers in the studio were like, this needs to be more of a struggle and look like she could die, etc. So I think they had to go back and do reshoots.
Because one thing I couldn't quite work out was that in the version we saw, that Patrick Dempsey's character is inside the cinema room at the end. Because when Dewey and Gail rush in, unless I misread it completely and saw it, rush in, and then they go to him on the floor. But he wasn't in that room, was he? Or did he?
No, he gets in. He sneaks in and then gets like knocked over the head or something.
Oh, he does. Okay, maybe I just I was looking away at that moment, so it was all a bit frenetic. But well, Scream 3. So I think Joseph, first of all, what did our dear listeners think of this one? What was the consensus?
Out of a moderate 89 votes, 54% of those listeners enjoyed Scream 3, whilst the remaining 46% did not.
Like the critics.
The
critics.
Yeah, pretty much. Our listener of the week is Allison Troy on Facebook, and she writes, due to the shift in tone due to Columbine, I always thought they should have just postponed it and made it later on as the scrambling to change the storyline and make it feel cohesive with the first two, leave it feeling radically off tone-wise. Sydney is an afterthought, and Parker Posey spends way too much time hamming it up, and Dewey feels completely out of character. And don't even get me started on Gail's bangs. Those are the scariest thing in the whole movie. Thank you, Allison. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, and on all good and bad podcatchers. And our email address is info or feedback at thehysteriacontinues.net.
Excellent, and keep on writing in. And I think it's fair to say, brace yourself.
It's my joke of the week. It's so fantastic.
So, I used to go out with the actress who plays Jennifer in this, but she cheated on me. She tried to make amends by bringing me a bunch of flowers, but I told her where she could park her posies.
I like that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
He stole your 3 screams joke, Eric.
Sorry?
He stole your 3 screams joke. He used the scream 3 times.
I did.
You remember when you did that at the end of the Friday the 13th episode? You said he announced Scream 3, or in the Evil Laugh episode, he announced Scream 3, and you went ah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
So he stole. So
Stop
Justin stole
stealing
your
my joke. Yeah.
Well, I find it very unbelievable that you would be going out of Parker Posey.
Have you ever carried a Parker full of posies?
Oh my. So, well,
hey,
I think
Eric, what did she say when you told her where to park her posies?
She said, "You're so sexy, can't I have you back?" And I was like, no, Parker Posey, I'm sorry, it's over.
She actually said
it was dramatic.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, park your Posey. She's like, my lawyer like
that. I love that line.
God, I love her in this film so much.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we've got some. We do have some feedback, and I think we have some Scream 3 specific feedback, don't we?
I don't know. Do we?
I would think
Do we?
so. Well, we do, but I'm desperately trying to find. I'm going through trying to find. So, greetings, Podfathers. Hope this finds you well. Just finished listening to the Evil Laugh episode, and I really enjoyed it. Super excited to know what the next episode will be. That the next episode will be Scream 3, as I'm a huge Scream fan. Yes, even Part 4. I'm praying that the rumours about Part 5 are not all BS. I'm trying to fill my social distancing days with horror. So I decided to have a Hysteria Continues Film Fest. See the attached photo to see what films I'm about to watch with you gents. Watching these movies with you boys will make this a fun weekend after all. Just one more time, I just want to suggest you all cover Lady Terminator. I would love to hear what you think of this gem of a film. It's unforgettable, as unforgettable as Blood and Black Lace, Erik. So do we, Lady Terminator?
Love it.
Yes. It would be good Patreon pick, wouldn't it?
Oh my God, yes.
I've
And
never seen it.
Nathan, you've got to see Lady Terminator.
Have you not
would
seen
love
Lady
this
Terminator?
film.
Yeah, you would love it.
Okay, I'll watch it.
Jim, have you seen it?
Awesome.
No, I've never heard of it.
It's
Indonesian, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't really give much away, though, Erik. Give a little synopsis.
Well, it's a female Terminator, but she's very partial to taking her top off, and the action is, shall we say, done on a shoestring. And that's all I can really remember. I do have it on DVD. I do love it though. I can guarantee you that much.
Wasn't it? Isn't it the film that have got sort of the line about that a man's found with his bits missing, and they say it might have been small woodland animals that ate his genitals. Something like that, wasn't it?
I don't recall. I'd have to rewatch.
Maybe that's a different film I saw, I'm not sure. But anyway, finishing off, it says, I want to say that my co-host Keith and I always appreciate you playing our podcast promo. And as ever, or as always, we're happy to reciprocate. Stay safe and well, friends, and keep up the great work. Scream 3 rules. Jay Bullington, producer and co-host of Have You Seen This One, a.k.a. Histo. So have you seen this one, alloneword.com. So well worth a listen. So thank you for writing in, Jay, as ever.
What was in the picture?
Yes, I don't know. You sent that to me, Joseph. What was in the picture?
I don't know that I got those attachments. Otherwise, I probably would have shown them around.
Oh, well, that's...
I was like, I wonder what he watched. Hopefully some of my picks.
Yes.
So, okay, well, what I was thinking about playing out with, I think we probably have to play out with the Nick Cave Red Right Hand, the version of Scream 3. So play out with that. But what are we covering next time? Although we've already said, but Erik.
Yes, it's my pick. And surprise, surprise, tension building. We're covering The Unseen.
Yes. I can't wait to hear what we think about it.
I know.
Yeah. I can't wait to get it out of the way, record it so I can get to editing it.
And we need to
hurry up and record that.
Erik is very resistant to wearing big underpants for the video promo for YouTube.
Yes.
But if you would like him to do that, please write in to let us know.
If Erik's, I thought he wore fishnet stockings.
No, I don't.
That's not the picture I saw.
No. You didn't see any pictures of me wearing fishnet.
Well, what about those text messages you were sending back and forth with Nathan?
I didn't.
You admitted it. Remember?
They were photoshopped.
Well, we know they weren't, Erik. But
Justin
anyway,
has a Toya wig.
I do not.
Justin dresses up as Toya at weekends.
Send me all the evidence, Justin, and I'll make sure this goes up on YouTube.
Well, okay. send the evidence to of the Justin in the Toya wig as well. Then, if I say it enough, you'll have to put the picture up on the YouTube channel.
Well,
I'm actually very proud of that one. So.
Yes. Well, anyway, enough. I think we've come to a logical end. So we're going to be returning with The Unseen next week, but. Jim, I just want to say a big thank you as ever, and hopefully you'll join us on the Scream 4 episode whenever that happens.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Yes. So, is there anything you want to tell us about? I mean, I know you're probably indoors like the rest of us. Have you got any projects or anything you want to share?
Nothing to plug here. I'm just going to park my posy on the couch, watch some more movies.
Fair enough. So, well, thank you guys, and thank you to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this hour and a half-ish of Scream 3. So, yeah, we're back with Barbara fighting a big baby in a nappy next time in The Unseen. So
Barbara got back. Barbara got back.
So say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, good people.